Kia ora koutou, I'm Phil Evans, addiction psychiatrist at CADS. I'm going to tell you a little bit about prescribing benzohypnotics. So we kind of bang on about this idea of universal precautions. So I'll tell you a bit about that. It's this basically a concept, some thinking behind when you're prescribing, and you can apply this to any medication, but perhaps a bit more scrutiny around controlled drugs, drugs with dependence forming potential, drugs with addiction potential. And this is heavily plagiarised from the opioid, the universal precautions concept in prescribing comes from opioid literature. And they talk about 5 A's, and I've kind of nicked them and adapted them to benzohypnotics. So when you're thinking about whether a medication's appropriate or not, does it help with anxiety and activity? Are there any adverse effects? Is there any signs, symptoms of addiction? Or another way of thinking about things, do you have a reasonable evidence base to suggest that this medication is indicated? Do you have a clear symptom target or disorder? And when you're monitoring it, does it help? Not just with the symptom, but also a person's functioning as well. And then as time goes on, you're going to start making sure that this medication that you're prescribing is safe and isn't causing a person any side effects, harms. Ideally, your dose is within the usual range. You're thinking about interactions, particularly with opioids in this class of medication. You're going to want to know how the person's using it and whether they're using it in a pattern that's consistent with your prescription, ideally, and that there's no misuse, overuse, overdoses, whether it's been combined with other substances for a particular effect. And obviously whether a person's becoming physically dependent on it, not, pretty common kind of thing with these medications, and a problem in and of itself. And of course, we're always wondering about addiction. So this is another useful thing that we initiate usually as soon as we see people, is we're really clear about what we're doing with a prescription for a controlled drug. So what our target symptoms are, how long we're going to prescribe it for, whether there's a taper plan, whether there'll be some review at some point. Usually we're going to be pretty clear about what our maximum dose is, or what we're going to maintain the dose at and what we won't go above. And we're going to have a pretty structured dispensing plan. There's also a whole lot of other things that you're going to want to do and not do. I'll leave you to read them. So the second part is translating all this onto your script, because this is all the pharmacy will see. And so as much detail as you can put on the more detail, the better. Some of this is a bit old school because we used to write scripts, obviously, but I don't know whether anyone does that anymore. No. So we still put a pharmacy on the script, the strength of the particular medication you're using, the max or the total daily dose, how you intend this medication to be taken, the dispensing plan. A useful thing to write is that there's to be no early pickups on a prescription. This is probably one of the most common kind of pathways into people overusing and then self-escalating doses and running into problems. A start date and a duration, and then everyone's really clear when the next script is due. And also your dispensing plan will be maintained. Often, we typically will write that any script we write will have replacement script written on it for controlled drugs. And this is to try and limit overlapping, repeats, prescriptions from other prescribers, etc. If you've got a tapering plan, put it on the script. and try and align your dose changes with the dispensing regime. Just makes it a lot easier for everyone, more likely that it will be sorted by the pharmacy. Dispensing, this is another key thing that we're usually working with prescribers on, trying to come up with a dispensing plan that matches the sort of risk profile. So obviously for people who you're not worried about, it was low dose, things are ticking along nicely. You might have a fairly low frequency dispensing plan. And for someone with higher doses, polypharmacy, more concerns, you might ask that they're collecting their medication more regularly. So this obviously turns your prescription into a small essay. Yes, nevertheless, I'd recommend it. Keep it simple. So these are some ideas for when things are more complicated. I did get a bit carried away with trying to squeeze everything into some kind of letter from the alphabet. It doesn't actually spell anything, and I can't make a nice acronym out of it. But here, let's go with C's. So communicate, be really clear with people what you're doing. Try and come up with a nice, clear treatment agreement so everyone's on the same page. Keep it contained and tidy. Script, write your small essay on your script so your pharmacist knows what you're doing. Align everything to the same dispensing plan so it's not little bits of top up and then switching and then someone else comes in and goes, oh, that's due, but that's not. And yeah, all these things will, kind of reduce risk and help people maintain a bit of stability. Always have, change in the back of your mind. Talk to people about it. Can we kind of reduce the number of pills here? Can we switch to longer acting medications to reduce maybe some interdose withdrawal or something like that? We always find that there's a bit of tension when people start talking about we need to get you off this or it's time to come off this medication, rather than initiating that conversation by talking about reducing, particularly for people who've been on medications for many years. And they've been told by lots of doctors that this is for their anxiety. And if you're going to take it off them, what are they going to do? And this is all well and good when things are, okay, there's no overt risks or harms. Then yes, you might work steadily and gradually at that. Obviously, if that's not the case, you might need to make some more significant changes more quickly. Always think about, if I force this person off this medication, what could happen? Needs to be part of the consideration. Couldn't do a presentation without quoting Jürgen Klopp. I'll leave this for you guys to read later. It's like anything in medicine. The more information and knowledge you've got, the more confidence you'll bring to a particular procedure or skill, and prescribing and managing controlled drugs is no different. These are a whole lot of resources that we use and we send to people. I suppose the health pathways is one that we've had a lot of input into. Having a good conversion table is a useful thing to have floating around as well. And if all that fails, then but the first part of that quote is possibly. So if you refer to us, this took me a long time, so I'm just going to leave it up there. These are the kind of groups the referrals that sort of end up falling into these categories for us. And down here and towards the middle, these are ones where, it's probably more than 85% of referrals will fall into that category where people are asking us, 5 gone to go? To go. And then down towards the other end, when you're getting closer to a sort of, the legal sort of definition of really the limits of legal prescribing in primary care, is when we obviously need to step in and probably take over the prescribing and sort things out.